Hello and welcome back to another studio tutorial. In this video I'm going to be covering exploring windows in the View tab as well as the studio interface, how to test your game in the Test tab, how to and where to get and use plugins, and finally I will be doing an overview of the file menu. So let's get right into that. Before I start, as you can see in the bottom left corner, I now have a key recorder, so whatever I do you will be able to see on the bottom left of the screen. So let's say Control X on the part, and now I've just cut the part, and then I can Control Z to undo. If you're ever stuck, just look down there in the bottom corner. Those will show the keybinds, the shortcuts, stuff like this, and everything that I'm doing with regards to keybinds. So as I outlined in the beginning, we are going to be going over the View tab here and opening all of these to check out their windows and what their purpose is, their functionality, what is in them, stuff like this. There will also be a link in the description linking to the Roblox developer wiki that will explain everything I'm talking about today in a more simple manner and compact on a page, essentially. Let's get started right in here. We have the Explore window. This will show you all of your services, models, stuff in your workspace, players, lighting, and all of these being your services, your UI, chat, stuff like this. Your Properties window, which is right next to the Explore window, will show you all of the properties of your selected object or part. Like for example, with the mesh part, it changes it to where now you have a mesh ID to insert. You can insert meshes from Blender or 3D models from Blender, as well as their own custom texture. With the regular parts, on the other hand, you can edit things like colors, material, reflectance, transparency, the basic type things. Before I go on, I want to mention that I never went over reflectancy and transparency in the last video, so I want to show you guys what reflectancy does. It makes your part more glossy and shiny. Things will reflect off of it. You can do more fancy things in the future with this, especially based on the material that you're using. Transparency will make it so you can see through the part. It's also known as opacity. You can raise and lower this depending on how much you want to be able to see through your part. This looks really good with glass, and this is what is used to make clear glass. The next window is the Game Explorer. You can find your badges and developer products that you can upload into your game, meshes that you've added, images that you've added, and other sub places that you've added to your game, as well as packages. One of the most important and most used windows is the toolbox. I believe this loads as soon as you join Studio, but the toolbox holds free models, images, meshes, audio, videos, and plugins for you to choose from. It also offers you to choose from your own made models, images, meshes, stuff like this, and group ones as well. And you can also load in recently used ones that you used in previous games or the game that you are making currently. And the Creations tab is for models that you or groups have published. The tutorials window, you don't need this because you're watching this video right now and my videos are better, but you can find Roblox wiki tutorials on there, such as how to program, beginning to programming, or the shortcuts I showed you guys in the last video. The object browser window will show you every single object, class, and if I remember correctly, it's called enum in Roblox, and information on them. This is things that'll go into your UI. It's more used for scripting and events and stuff like this. The next window is the output window. The output window will show you errors that you have or warnings, and will print outputs or results that you get from your script. The script analysis works in a similar fashion, except it shows script errors and warnings without you having to go to the test page or opening the game itself and find the errors. So you don't have to actually test the game or run it. The command bar, as you can see, I have open down at the bottom. This is where it will usually be. This can run Lua code that's not inside of a official script inside of your game. It can just run code as itself. The breakpoints does what it says and allows you to view existing breakpoints within your script. The call stack is similar in that you can see your call stack of your script. The watch window allows you to view variable values as you go through your breakpoints in a script. I also don't want to forget to mention that you need the Lua debugger to access and view all of these things. This would mean that you have to go into your Roblox Studio settings and enable your Lua debugger. I'll show you guys that later in the settings overview. The next window is the performance window, and this obviously will show you the performance or diagnostic information of your game and how it's running. The task scheduler window shows you feedback on all of these things. These are looping services within your game, and it'll show you while it's running. The script performance window will show you your CPU usage and how much your scripts are using or taking up your CPU. The find results window will show you what you find when you use Control-Shift-F. This could be to look through your scripts and look for something specific or stuff like this. You can specify what you want to find in your script and what scripts you want to find results in. The team create is pretty obvious, and many of you might have already used it before. It's pretty simple, and it will allow you to work with other people. When you turn this on, you will be able to invite other people to your game, and it'll make it so it is now like a multiplayer studio setting. So there you can see my icons there, and I can go add people by going to my game settings and adding people in permissions. I'll get into that later. One important thing to know is how to disable team create. You go down here in the bottom 3 dots, it'll be on the bottom of the window or UI, and you can click on that and it'll say help or disable team create. Click disable team create and it'll turn off, it'll load, reload, and then you will be back at your original studio settings with no team create on. The next window is script recovery, and this will contain all the scripts that you have recovered, and it will essentially store those recovered scripts in here. The next one is the terrain editor, and this will allow you to generate, import, or clear your terrain. It can also allow you to select, move, resize, etc. your terrain. You can play around with those things, or I will be doing things with terrain in the future. And you can also edit it by doing things like adding more terrain, growing it, smoothing it out, and painting it. It replaces a new one. I haven't played around with that yet, and I might in the future. So yeah. And last but not least is the chat. Now this is specifically for Team Create. I didn't have it open when I first started Team Create because it kind of gets annoying, especially if you're going to be working with multiple people. It might as well be on like a different communication platform, whatever you use, whether it be Discord or I don't know if people use Skype or something like that. The next thing I want to go over in the View tab, since I didn't just want to do all these windows, I know there's a lot of them and that took a lot of time, but I want to do and go over this action right here, the View selector, and go over grids, windows, and stuff like this. So the first thing I really want to get done and over with is the stats, and this will show you how well your game is performing, how much space it's using up, and so the first things that I want to go over are these stats that you can find all the way to the right in the View tab. These will show you how well your game is performing, how many things are in your game, how well it's doing on disk space and stuff like this, memory space, CPU, essentially how much space it's taking up. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you open all of these, this clear button just clears all of those stats windows. So if you have like this order open, yeah, since they're on multiple corners and it's just getting messy, you can clear them and they'll be gone. The next things that I want to go over are things like the grid material, and windows here. You can show a grid on your game or world, and this will allow you to work within a 4x4 stud grid, 2x2 stud grid, or 16x16. This could be used for more accurate builds if you want to keep things concise and clean and have something that like serves as a boundary, I suppose. You can also add grid material. I don't really know what anyone would use this for. I guess it kind of adds a little style to your base plate or something, but you can turn that on and off if you want. It doesn't really matter. Switch windows, that's for if you have multiple windows in your studio open, you can quickly switch over to another window inside of your game or studio. Last but not least, I'm going to go over the view selector. This is essentially a camera type utility where you can change your view, position of it, angle, stuff like this, and they're very specific views. It is a dynamic axis display, so depending on what you click, it'll change dynamically. The very basic way to test your game is very simple. You go to the test tab in your studio, and the first thing you can do is run your game. This will make it so things that are unanchored will actively fall. Physics basically will start running, and scripts will also start running. It'll give you an output unless you, of course, use the script analysis window. Essentially, it'll run the game without having to put your character in the game and you being able to walk around. You're basically going to stay flying. The other ones are play and play here. It's the same thing as run. Everything starts running, except this time your character actually spawns in game and you can walk around and you can play with the type of things that you've built and the physics and stuff like that. While you're in play here mode or play mode, you can also go to your client and you can change this to being the server. This is mainly used for game testing, and I've seen it mainly used by programmers to check the difference, to check how their scripts are running on client and server and if they're working properly. Also, if you want to exit testing or your simulation, you will press the stop button and that'll bring you back out into where you were before, is a hovering dude building your stuff. And you can also pause, and this will pause the entire game and your simulation in place. So like if I were to jump here, it would pause and I can look around, move around, and see what's happening while it is paused. So the next thing I want to get into is the start button, and this will allow you to have multiple sessions of studio to see how your server and client is working, and having multiple players will allow you to do this efficiently so you can get multiple results. As you can see, only 8 players can be selected. The more players you have, the more laggy it will get and more draining it'll be on your computer. So I'm gonna go ahead and start up one of these right now. So it'll start running and it'll spawn multiple players into your studio, and you'll have many players in them. There will be multiple sessions, and yes, this is how it works. So now that that's started, you should have multiple players in your game or server, and these will be your multiple sessions. So let's see, we have 2 players here, player 1 and player 2. They can interact with each other and all sorts of stuff. Then when you're done doing your 2-player testing, 1-player testing, how many ever players you are testing with, you can clean it up and it'll close both those sessions and bring you back to the normal studio. The next options or buttons I want to get into is these ones, the emulation and audio. The audio, you can mute your studio and eliminate all sounds coming from studio. This will set it at 0 volume. The next one we have is device, and when you click this, it'll bring you the screen of what another device would look like if it were playing your game. So I have iPhone 7 up here, and this is how my game would look. I think actual resolution is best. That way it can look closest to what your game would actually look like on a phone or whatever device it's on. The last is the player emulator, and this will allow you to emulate localization and game content policies. We gotta move on to the plugins now. The first thing you want to do is open your toolbox, and as I showed you earlier, if you remember this, you can go to your toolbox, go to the marketplace tab where all the free stuff is, and you can go to the plugins on the drop down menu here. You can add any plugin you want. In this case, we are going to use the tree generator, I suppose, because that's probably fairly easy. You're going to click that, and it's going to open a UI for you to be able to install it here. You can view it in browser or report it if you really don't like it. Or you can install it, which is probably what you're going to do. You can close that out, go to your plugins, and it will be there. And now that we have the plugin, we can go to the plugins tab and place the tree by clicking on the button for the tree generator plugin. And now after that, this will have presets. You can click this load probably, and oh, that loads a new tree. And then I don't know, you click and it loads the tree. That's it. Okay, great. Every other plugin works differently. You'll probably have to figure that out on your own or read the description of it, but that is how you install a plugin and begin using it on your plugins tab. I hope that's pretty simple. I think it's pretty simple, right? But now we are going to move on to the file menu and things you can do here. I'm going to try and go over this as quick as possible because there are a lot of things, but I'm going to explain them as simply as I can. Clicking New will open an empty base plate, sort of like this, except if there was no trees, no parts, and no models in the Explorer. Open from File will allow you to open a saved place from a local file. You can also open from Roblox, and this will open a saved place from the cloud. You can close File, and you will be able to close the studio or game that you're working in currently. One of the more important ones are the save files, because this will allow you to save your game, and save to file will allow you to save the place as a local file on your computer. This way it'll be saved on your computer, and let's say Roblox Cloud crashes, now your studio's gone, you have it in a file. But first, to save the file, you'll probably have to save the file as, and this will allow you to save it as a new local file. Saving to file will save the file that you've already saved as. It's a little bit confusing, but you're basically just updating the previous save that you made when you did save to file as. Two other important ones, especially when you're doing team create, you have to click save to Roblox and or publish to Roblox to officially update your game. Doing publish to Roblox as will allow you to save the studio that you're working with as a new game with a new title, new description, stuff like this. The next one is the advanced button, and this will allow you to open a list of other options. With open autosaves, it'll open a file window that will show you the recent recoveries and autosaves that studio made to your game. It's sort of like a backup, so let's say you crashed or lost connection and you couldn't save your game, you can open this, open autosaves, and you can recover your game when it was last updated. This is very useful. I advise using it, especially for if you lose your save. Going into the file menu and going advanced export as OBJ will export the entire game as an OBJ file. If you want to export a singular thing, you have to go to the model and right click and do export individually. Clicking customize shortcuts will allow you to customize your studio shortcuts, such as this. That's if you want to customize your keybinds. I don't advise doing this because the keybinds currently are fine and most people use them anyways. Manage plugins will allow you to manage your plugins and turn them on and off. This will allow you to change whether you see them in your plugins tab or not. The last ones are pretty simple. The game settings will allow you to access the game settings. You can do that by going to the home tab and going all the way to the right and clicking game settings as well. Same thing with studio settings. It'll just access your studio settings. Game settings is the actual game description, name, title, whether you allow R6 or R15 on your game or not, stuff like this. And studio settings will change your studio settings, such as if you want your hover color on your part to be like pink or green, you change it here. You can change the theme of your script background and other stuff like that, your camera speed. There's a lot to get into there. I advise you guys to get into that yourself, but I might do a video on this entire thing in the future. I'm not sure, since there's a lot here, and I don't think I really would need to, but you can go over this yourself if you want. Clicking online help in the file menu will do the same as this little button up here in the top right next to your name, and it will take you to the developer wiki and you can search whatever you need help with. It might not have everything, but it will set you on the right path, and it usually has almost everything. And then finally, about Roblox Studio in the bottom of the file menu just tells you about Roblox Studio and who's it's owned by and their motto, essentially. Now that we're done with all of that, I just want to do some quick things with the UI itself, like how to close these. You can close these just by clicking X, or to lower this top bar, because you can't really remove it, you can click this arrow on the top up here. This will give you a more closed view of your place, but you usually want to keep that open. On the top right, you can find a phone and a tablet, and you can click that and it'll open the emulator tab / test, emulator test. So that's going to be it for this tutorial video on Studio. I hope it will help you navigate your way through Studio, and if it did, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and liked, and especially shared the video, because I really need that. Since I got 1 subscriber, I really need to start expanding this channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you did that. I'll catch you guys in the next Studio tutorial. See ya.